Okay, welcome. Welcome and thank you for joining us for Elder Climate Action's monthly national call. I'm Mark Cook, co-chair of ECA's Education Committee and host of tonight's call. For those of you who are new to ECA, we are grandparents, great aunts and uncles, and everyday folks determined to do all we can to leave a livable planet for future generations of all life. Our programs, communications, and chapters are focused on engaging elders in building the cultural and political will needed to solve the climate crisis. At ECA, we are elder-centered and volunteer-driven, seeking to inform, inspire, and engage older generations to take action on the climate crisis at the local, state, and federal levels. We are always looking for more volunteers to join our national leadership committees, including the education team, who brings tonight's programming. Reach out if you'd like to learn more. We'll drop links in the chat. This is an hour and 15-minute event. Amena will present Cleantech's future under the Inflation Reduction Act, or IRA, followed by Q&A, so please feel free to add questions for her in the Q&A box over the course of her presentation. We will follow the national call with a quick 15-minute action party beginning at 8 p.m. Eastern Time with our partners at the Climate Action Now app. We hope you will stay on for the action party and help us kick off 2025 with a strong start and help us reach a goal of 500 actions. In planning tonight's national call topic, the education team wanted to find some positive news, even if not fully motivated by our considerable and legitimate concerns about climate and the environment. Tonight, for some hopeful news, I am pleased to welcome Amena Saiyid, Washington, D.C. correspondent of Cipher News. ECA is clear-eyed. Election of the 47th president hinged in large part on economic considerations. 4 executive orders, terrible for climate and the environment, have been signed. The first eases domestic fossil fuel exploration, even for sensitive areas. The second is exit from the Paris Climate Agreement. Third is rolling back and this incentives to build electric vehicles in the U.S. And 4, blocking new wind energy. However, Republican lawmakers from states Trump won support the IRA's climate and economic benefits to their states. For now, this is the good news and gives our movement direction consistent with more state and local focus. So without further delay, allow me to introduce Amena, excuse me. Amena is a Washington, D.C. based correspondent for Cipher. She is a climate and energy journalist with expertise analyzing the regulatory, legal, and legislative impacts on the U.S. energy, chemicals, and manufacturing sectors. Amena has covered the intersection of U.S. policy and the environment for over 20 years. Most recently as a senior climate and energy analyst and journalist for S&P Global. As a founding member of the team, she reported, edited, and analyzed the impacts of global climate policy developments on the financing and installation of clean energy technologies. Prior to S&P Global, Amena spent 13 years as a reporter for Bloomberg Environment, now Energy and Environment News with Bloomberg Industry Group, covering environmental protection, administration appropriations, pipeline safety, and hazmat transport, air pollution, and more. In between stints with Bloomberg Industry Group, she was an associate editor with S&P Platts, now S&P Global Commodity Insights, analyzing coal, uranium, and emissions markets. She also served as a congressional fellow at the American Political Science Association and was an editor with Argus Media covering climate change, air quality, and emissions markets. Amena holds an MA in journalism from the University of Missouri at Columbia and a BS in chemistry from the College of William and Mary. Thanks, Amena, and please proceed.
Thank you so much, Mark. That was a long intro. Uh, anyway, good evening, everyone. My name is Amena Saiyid. I am the Washington correspondent for Cypher, an online news service dedicated to covering global climate solutions. And our topic today is the Cleantech's future, clear or cloudy, under the Inflation Reduction Act. So, with that, we will continue. So, what is the Inflation Reduction Act? It is the largest climate spending bill in US history. Keep in mind, no Republican voted for this law. Vice President Kamala Harris cast the tie breaking vote in the Senate, sending this bill to President Biden to sign into law. This law is responsible for nearly $400 billion of tax credits, loans, loan guarantees, and grants to deploy clean energies and spur domestic clean tech manufacturing. Think about it, $400 billion. So what energy, clean energy, what do we mean by clean energy? We're talking about solar, wind, geothermal, battery storage, hydropower, nuclear power. And in terms of technologies, we're talking about carbon capture and storage, clean hydrogen, sustainable aviation fuels. The purpose of this law was to slash 40% of US greenhouse gas emissions by the end of the decade. So, where are we today, 2.5 years from there? About $440.8 billion of private sector announced investments have been made through Q3 2024, which is the latest data we have available. And by that I mean through September 30th of last year. Nearly 80% of funding has gone towards GOP states. IRA fuel projects have created more than 100,000 jobs. So, just looking at it from the 2024 presidential election, we see that, I give a couple of examples of states that have benefited. Texas today has the largest network of renewable energy and battery storage. It surpassed California last year. Oklahoma is home to wind farms and is planning to build at least 4 lithium, nickel, and cobalt processing sites. Georgia is home to LanzaJet's first clean burning aviation fuel factory. It also has a number of battery manufacturing factories too. West Virginia is home to Form Energy's iron air battery factory. And this iron air battery can provide up to 100 hours of storage, which is critical for us, especially when we have wind and solar. It can take that electricity that's generated during the day, store it, and then help large factories, steel factories, whatever, what have you, to continuously receive this energy. Pennsylvania, as I discovered in my reporting last year, is home to a number of solar powered school districts. These school districts, they are cash strapped, they need money. The electricity bills were very high, so they basically what entered into contracts and decided to go all solar, and they're saving money, and that money is going towards teaching children, towards the curriculum, etc. My home state of Virginia uh, is home to electrolyzer manufacturing. There was this big launch last year, and Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin was out there with Democratic senators and all, for the ribbon cutting of Topsoe's factory. North Dakota and Wyoming are home to carbon storage sites. So now I have a couple of pie charts that'll break this down by party affiliation and industrial sector. As you can see, from the total clean tech investments, Republicans or Republican states received at least 79.2% of those dollars, Democrat states 20.8%. When you look at it by sector, energy and industry, Republicans again, Republican states overwhelmingly received that money. When you look at clean manufacturing, again, Republican states benefited. That's not to say that Democrat states did not benefit, they did. And the reason is that Republican states occupy more land, they have tax setups, they have more opportunities, they have certain labor laws and etc. that are in place that have allowed more money to go into these states. Spending by state GDP. So you can see again, the clean tech investments as a share of their gross domestic product. Again, you see the top 5 states are all Republican, with the exception of perhaps New Mexico in this list. Again, you see most of the jobs are going to Republican states. And this slide was from way back before the election. So we had swing states. All those swing states, as you all well know, voted for President Trump. So the purple ones are actually red. And again, you see Georgia, South Carolina, Michigan, North Carolina, Texas, Nevada, Tennessee, Ohio, Indiana, come all the way down, and then you come to New York, Illinois, and New Mexico and Colorado right towards the end. But you can see the pattern here. So what's clear to us from all of this? We know that there's a narrow majority in the US Congress. Now that's very important from the perspective of the IRA. In the US Senate, we have 53 Republicans to 45 Democrats and 2 independents who caucus with Democrats, namely Senator Bernie Sanders from Vermont and Senator Angus King from Maine. In the House of Representatives, you have 219 Republicans to 215 Democrats. However, despite that, in the House, Republican lawmakers lack support to undo the IRA. And why is that? Because 18 GOP House lawmakers, from Republican states like Utah, Wyoming, North Dakota, etc., have written to House Speaker Mike Johnson and indicated their support for IRA. They said, please do not roll it back. So hanging over all of this, as Mark mentioned at the beginning of this call, are President Trump's executive orders. He already talked about the withdrawal from the Paris Agreement. He talked about some of the other ones, but I'm going to focus on 3 for the purposes of this presentation. The first one is the Unleashing American Energy Order. The other one is the National Energy Emergency Declaration. And the third is pause on offshore wind leases in federally controlled waters or the outer continental shelf. The title was super long, so I just abbreviated it for everyone's. So I'll talk about each of these orders in turn. So the Unleashing American Energy Order, it eliminates the so-called EV mandate. Basically, it's trying to undo the tax credits for purchasing electric vehicles, and it's targeting EPA's fuel efficiency and tailpipe standards. Keep in mind that to undo the tax credits, you need to go through Congress. And to undo these rules, EPA rules, you have to go through a notice and comment period, which means basically EPA has to put out a notice with a proposal, then it has to accept comment, then it has to go through those comments and then finalize the rule. This process can take anywhere from at least 3 to 6 months, or if not more. So this is not happening right now. The Unleashing American Energy Order also froze IRA funding pending a 90-day review of policies, programs, and processes. What does that mean? That means that the loans, the grants, and the loan guarantees are funded. The tax credits, which incidentally make up the bulk of that IRA funding, which I talked about at the beginning, those are unaffected. So that's a good thing. Another thing that you all should keep in mind that 84% of the grants under IRA have already been obligated to projects, meaning that the checks have been sent off. What else does the order do? It expedites permitting for energy sources. And by energy sources here, we're referring to oil and gas and geothermal and nuclear and critical mineral processing. Critical minerals are key to making batteries. And infrastructure like pipelines. Now, you may think pipelines is a bad thing, but when you start thinking about clean hydrogen and carbon capture and storage, you need pipelines to transport hydrogen and CO2 for eventual storage. The most worrisome part of this order is that it seeks to undermine the legal basis for regulating greenhouse gases. A legal finding known as endangerment finding, and this was a Supreme Court ruling over more than a decade ago. And the order directs EPA and all the fine lawyers who are joining the administration to start finding ways to undo it. In short, it dismantles all the Biden era climate rules, policies, and programs. President Trump's National Energy Emergency Declaration. Basically, the idea is to make the US a leading global energy leader, mainly in fossil fuels. What I found most worrisome about this declaration was the energy definition. Yes, it includes biofuels, which includes sustainable aviation fuels, which are, relatively cleaner burning fuels compared with conventional jet fuels. It includes critical minerals. It includes geothermal. It includes hydropower. It includes nuclear fusion, fission, and uranium. That's the good part. The worrisome part is that it includes wind, solar, and battery storage, and does not include clean hydrogen. It does not include carbon capture and storage. Okay. The interesting thing is, initially, the Interior Department put out a memo on the day that President Trump took office, basically saying that there will be no permitting of renewable energy on public lands and public waters. Basically, there are currently 12 projects that are in various stages of permitting, so they won't be permitted. So that it's put a sort of a pause on that. That's a bit worrisome. The National Energy Emergency Declaration basically allows the president to circumvent specific environmental laws to expedite permitting. So the three laws that are at stake here are the Clean Water Act, the Endangered Species Act, and the Marine Mammals Act. Okay, President Trump's executive order on wind projects. So what does that do? It pauses new and renewed federal permits, rights of way, leases, or loans for onshore and offshore wind projects pending agency review. It's temporarily withdraws all federally owned waters, read outer continental shelf, from leasing for new and renewed offshore wind projects. So it doesn't appear to affect existing projects or existing leases. But what it does do is that it directs the Secretary of Interior and all other Secretary of Energy and all other related agencies to review the ecological, economic, environmental rationale for why the existing permits are harmful. So it's basically, and make recommendations of how these leases, existing leases, can be terminated or amended. So I would say that existing projects are fine until this report comes out, and God knows what's going to happen at that time. So I wanted to share some facts about where US energy. Right now, the United States is the world's leading oil producer in terms of oil, crude oil, biofuels, and petroleum products. Now you can see the US produces more than 20 million barrels per day. And it's double that of Saudi Arabia. It's way more than Russia. And you can see the chart. This is something people don't realize, that we are currently the leading oil producer, and we have been so since 2018, which is 6 years ago. We also do not realize that the US is the #1 natural gas producer in the world and has been so since 2011. And you can see the chart. The line is curving up. It's not coming down. The other thing is that both oil and gas production picked up over a decade ago through the practice of fracking. And our current Energy Secretary nominee, Chris Wright, was the CEO of Liberty Energy, which embraced this practice of fracking. But he's also been involved in geothermal, and he's had some investments in nuclear and all of that. So fingers crossed. Okay, some more facts about US energy. Clean energy has been rising in the United States since 2010. But after the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act in 2022, you can see the lines, all of the growth sort of starts to rise. And as you can see, battery storage nearly doubled after this law went into effect. I'm sharing the screen. Cypher News has a Cleantech tracker, and you can find this on our website. And I will give you the URL or the website address for it at the end, but I can give it to you right now as well. It's www.cleantechtracker.com. And we have taken data from the Clean Investment Monitor, which is a joint project of the clean energy think tank, Rhodium Group, and MIT's Center for Energy and Environmental Policy Research. And they have been tracking spending for clean tech projects since 2018. So we've taken their projects and literally plotted where in the country these projects are taking place. So we have So we can see where battery storage is happening, where carbon management, and you all are welcome to see this. This is all free. This is all public facing. So what's cloudy? House Speaker Mike Johnson has said he will use a scalpel to the IRA, which means he's not going to do away with the entire law. That's the good news. But what will he take out? We don't know. We're waiting to see. The upcoming budget reconciliation package will contain energy and tax provisions. Pardon me for that little typo over there. The question is, do Republicans have the votes to undo these tax credits? It appears that it may not happen, but you never know. The problem with removing production and investment tax credits for wind, or for solar for that matter. Under the IRA, a single tech-neutral tax credit for production and investment for all clean energy sources took effect this year. So if they do decide to take out wind or solar, how are they going to do it? Are they going to completely rewrite and the tax credits, which means you again insert language into the bill, you go up against some of your constituents, and then on top of all of that, you have to put out guidance, and all of that take months. Loan and loan guarantees have helped shore up manufacturing in GOP states. So what's going to happen with that? We know that that is a fact. What will these states allow their factories to be to stop working or to close their doors, which I don't think any lawmaker wants. Big question is, what is the status of battery manufacturing? It's not mentioned in any of the orders that I've seen. Battery manufacturing is a big source of jobs and income in all of the states, especially in the Republican states. And as I mentioned, Texas. So what does this mean for you all? Litigation galore. Tons of lawsuits are going to be filed because of these loopholes, because some of the language is not clear. The offshore wind executive order basically talks about looking at permits on private land. Well, the government basically can't tell you what to do on your private land. So that's one thing. Economic and regulatory uncertainty. Basically, investors want to know, where is the climate? Where is it going? I'm not talking about climate change. I'm talking about the investment climate. They want to know what the rules of the land are. Where do they go from here? Well, and of course, regulatory uncertainty, because the executive order unleashing America independence and the National Energy Emergency Declaration basically freeze a lot of the regulations, which means power plant regulations, which means all of, so it just causes a lot of confusion and chaos. I would say keep a close eye on the tax credit debate as it starts, and it's probably going to start in the next few days or weeks or something like that. So keep your eyes peeled. Think about home energy efficiency rebates, electrical vehicle incentives, rooftop solar credits. These all may be under the gun. Who knows? Keep in mind as when you think about all of this, that renewables at the end of the day do lower electricity and fuel costs. And as we have seen in Pennsylvania, it's actually happening. The biggest question that I have is, will Texas, which starts itself as a clean leader, energy leader, give up its industry? Another point that I meant to add is, what does this mean for environmental justice and climate justice? There is language in the Inflation Reduction Act that says that each of these tax credits, certain percentage will go towards making sure that prevailing wages, you get bonus credit for paying prevailing wages, for making sure that you are including disadvantaged communities, etc. That cannot be taken out unless, of course, whatever happens with that scalpel that Speaker Johnson intends to wield. So with that, I come to the end of my presentation. I have some references, a lot of Cipher News articles that I and my colleagues have written, that you'll be able to get some of these numbers, etc. from. Latitude Media had a very good article on what a pause on IRA funds really means. Heat Map News talked about that permitting for the permitting pause for all renewables on federal lands, that I thought was an excellent write-up that I encourage you all to read. Clean Investment Monitor. This is a public-facing database. You can go over there. You can see how much money is being directed towards clean tech, and they do it by industry, and we have a partnership with them, so we take their data and we analyze it ourselves. Before we get to questions, as I promised before, please visit our website www.ciphernews.com. If you have your phones, you can hold it against the screen of your computers and get this QR code. You can go to our website. You can sign up for the newsletter. It's free. There's no charge. And you will get my colleagues who are, veteran reporters, journalists from Wall Street Journal, from the Washington Post, and Politico, etc. We all put our heads together, CNBC, and bring you our perspective and a different angle to many of these issues. Here's my contact information, and I believe Jen told me that and Mark told me that they're going to be distributing this presentation with all of you. So feel free to reach out to me. And question time.
Okay, we do actually have a few questions, and they may be ones that are difficult for you to answer, but I'll just go ahead and read them off, and you can do what you're able to with them, Amena. The first one is, what is left of the IRA? How much of the committed federal dollars have been expended?
So, like I said before, 84% of the grants have been given. Okay. A lot of the loan and loan guarantees have been given. I don't have an exact number, but I was told 84, which was coming 84%, which was something in the order of over $90 billion, okay, that have been given out. Loan and loan guarantees that have left DOE, Interior, etc., USDA, that are in the hands of people are safe. The ones that are still in the process of going through, those are probably going to be frozen. Do I have a number on that? No, I don't, unfortunately.
Okay.
Tax credits are safe, and tax credits make up more than half, 2/3 of the money of 2/3 of IRA funding. So just so you all know.
Okay. Another question, what is the administration's rationale for excluding solar and wind in its emergency declaration?
Um, so President Trump doesn't like wind, and he's made it extremely clear in his remarks on the campaign, in his inaugural speech, and subsequently on Fox News. He calls them ugly, big, ugly windmills. He thinks they are harming whales, which I believe a lot of scientists and a lot of studies have been done, and that's not the case. It's actually high-powered motorboats and things like that that are really affecting whale patterns. Um, Solar, he was at one point, and I remember hearing that speech during a campaign where he said, well, I'm not really against solar, and they look pretty good on rooftops, etc. But then again, a couple of days ago, 1 or 2 days ago on Fox TV, he said, I don't like them. They're massive solar farms and they're ugly. So that's his rationale for that. For battery storage, I think he sees them as linked to renewables, because basically if you have batteries, then you can make sure that wind and solar run through the night. You can use that energy that's generated by those renewable sources, store them, and then put them back on the grid, so it's constant. And they're also connected with electric vehicles, and he does not like electric vehicles. I think he only likes Teslas, but who knows?
Okay, yeah, this again is pretty detailed and but it says if I bought a heat pump water heater in 2024 and would get the tax credits this upcoming April, can the administration take those away or are they already committed?
Like I said before, the tax credits are not affected.
Okay.
In order for the tax credits to be rolled back, Congress has to act. Congress hasn't acted yet. I don't think they're going to act on the tax credits right now. I think they will try to do something, but it will be prospective. It will not be retroactive. So if you have a tax credit, my best guess is you are not affected.
Yeah, and I think tax accountants, if folks are using those, would also be able to answer that
Yeah.
question. So another question, how is the media preparing to, I guess, yeah, it says, how are you preparing to combat misinformation and disinformation on climate and energy in journalism?
With facts, numbers. And that's what we did. That's what we keep doing. Whenever I was in downtown DC, by close to Capital One Arena, where a lot of people had gathered to watch the inaugural ceremony. And I spoke to a bunch of people, and they said, we want to make America the #1 oil and gas producer. I said, but we already are. And this gentleman said to me, no, we aren't. I said, yes, we've been, these are Energy Information Administration numbers. And, whenever I speak to people, I give them my card and ask, tell them, I said, go and look at the numbers, go and look at the articles. This is not something that I'm making up. He says, well, I guess we didn't know about it. And I think part of the reason is that during the 4 years of President Biden's tenure, he downplayed the fact that the U.S. was an oil producer, was the leading oil and gas producer, because he wanted to focus on clean energy. But if you and probably if I go back to that chart, one second, bear with me. See, if you look at that chart, you will see 2020 to 2024, it just kept rising. Unfortunately, I don't have the chart for oil, but if you saw that, you would again see the same kind of curve, the growth going up. And so, I was talking to this analyst at Bloomberg Intelligence, Rob Barnett, and he said, drill baby drill never stopped these past 4 years. So I think the fact that we didn't talk about it, the president didn't talk about it, his administration officials didn't talk about it openly, explicitly. So people started thinking that we are somehow way behind. And US oil and gas production actually went up after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So there's, that perspective. So how do you counter misinformation? Depends on the kind of misinformation that's coming your way, right? I would say, if they talk about renewable energy, we have the facts. If they say it's the blue states that are benefiting, or it's a liberal thing, I can point to the charts and the numbers and say, well, but it's the Republican states that are benefiting. So there are ways to get around it. And if you have the right facts, you can make the argument. It's also, there's a thing that if people are prepared to listen to you, but if and when they listen, they do pay attention.
Yeah, and the Green New Deal, I think it was them. They had a national collaboration last week, I believe it was. And one of the things that they talked about is having people, just grassroots people in cities and states around the country, being the ears and eyes of these kinds of projects and making sure that people are aware of them, so that that again helps fight that disinformation. It's that storytelling and making sure people in their own communities and states know that these monies are being well used and creating jobs and that sort of thing. So I think that helps with that also.
Yeah, and if you go to, again, if you go to Cypher's website and you go to a Cleantech tracker, you can see where all these projects are happening. So you have that information. You can show it here. This job is happening. This factory has been put up. This factory has been put up. This is benefiting. This much money has been invested in it. And then you can go to the websites of these projects and look up and see how many jobs are being added. So the
Okay.
information is out there.
Another thing, since you follow a lot of facts, this is the question is, how significant is bird kill actually with wind turbines, especially offshore? I mean, again, since we're trying to deal in facts, I don't know if that's too granular, if you might have something to say about that.
I actually have not written about offshore wind in the longest time. I confess to that. Yes, I've heard that bird kills do happen, but not outrageously so. Not in the way that birds are becoming extinct or anything like that. Bird kills happen with jets flying, you know. Um, of course, that's pretty bad for planes to have accidents with birds or collisions with birds. But I think they've found a way with the designs and everything to avoid it. I'm sure it's not completely unavoidable, but I unfortunately don't have the exact figures. But I would say that that's something I would have to research.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not real fond of arguments that can be turned around to sort of the status quo where birds can die with our power lines and transformers and things like that. So again, there's just really no perfect world.
Also, Mark, the thing is, no technology is perfect.
Right.
Even oil and gas, even, everything. You think about it, even your phone, right? Even our
Right.
computers, we stare too long at them, our eyes get all blurry and red and whatnot. So no technology is perfect. And we need to start accepting and acknowledging this fact that every technology, however clean it may be or dirty it may be, has that margin of error or that margin where it's not going to be 100%. I mean, it goes against the law of physics. You cannot have a perfect machine. So,
Right. Another question, since the IRA was voted into law, how is it actually up for all these cuts? Also, do you know of the reason why we need to increase our oil and gas production when we are already the largest producer? Is it strictly for export?
so can you repeat the first part of your question?
Sure. It just says, since the IRA was voted into law, how is it actually up for all these cuts? Also, do you know the reason why we need to increase? Well, you probably heard that part.
Yeah. So, well, like Trump has said, he is against the Green New Deal, which is his name for the IRA. And Green New Deal was a law and a legislation coined by Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio. I'm getting her name mixed up. I always think of her as AOC, so forgive me. And the senator, from Massachusetts, and I think I'm just having anyway. But the point is that they can't make the cuts in the actual funds. They can freeze them, but that's also up. That's questionable. That they can pause it, but they can't cut it. They can't cut it because they have to have Congress act on it. The Congress has to pass legislation to do that. And they can only do it through the reconciliation process, which is coming up, which is the way, incidentally, that IRA was passed. So the good news is, or the good thing was that the IRA passed. The bad news is that the Democrats used the budget reconciliation process to push it through. The Republicans are returning the favor and they're going to try to do the same thing. But because Republican states have benefited so much from it, they may not be able to do everything that they want to do. I know that's not a direct answer to your question. It kind of is, but they can't cut the funding. They can freeze it, they can say we're going to do all these reviews, etc., but they can't end it. They certainly can't do anything to the tax credits. Second question is, why do we need more oil and gas production? That's part of his campaign promise. Also, your oil and gas companies, your firms want to increase their profits, but here's the reality check. We live in a world. We don't live in a vacuum. The United States does not operate in a vacuum. It operates in a global market. If they produce more oil, obviously the prices will go down because the market gets flooded, right? So, and same goes for gas. It just so happens that there's a lot of demand for gas because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So the demand has gone up tremendously in Europe. So it stands to the benefit of gas firms to be producing more gas and especially LNG that's going out there. And I believe the same goes for oil. And also, we have countries like China that are producing that need and consume a lot of oil and gas too. So even though when I believe we also sell oil to China, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm not sure about that. Don't quote me on that. Don't hold me to that. Oil and gas is not my area, but I do know enough, some.
Yeah, and somebody asked if I guess they're anticipating or considering buying an EV in the next few months, and should they be worried about whether a credit will be available to them?
I was also planning to do the same thing. And I'm also a little worried about that. If the reconciliation process, and they include the tax credits, and especially since the EV tax credit for purchasing an EV, which is $7,500, is included in it, and it probably is going to be included in it, because President Trump has singled it out over and over again. You may not get that credit. So if I were you, I would buy it now, instead of waiting a few months. You'd be able to get the credit now, but I think he has put a pause on it, pause on the subsidies, or he's asked for a review of it. So you'd be better off getting it now rather than waiting a few months. But hey, whatever works for you. But EV purchase tax credits are definitely going to be out if the Republicans have their way, and in the coming months.
Okay. Yeah, this is kind of along the lines of what we sort of talked about with misinformation. It's how are other news agencies planning to fight misinformation on social media sites that are backing away from fact checking and making large donations to the current POTUS.
How our current
I guess traditional versus alternative and new social media kinds of TikTok, for instance, I don't know if, I think the question is how would more traditional media fact check those other kinds of sources that people may rely on?
Well, we all post our articles on social media. I signed up for a Truth Social account, and I try to post over there. And I think you just try and try again, and at some point it will reach the right people, and some people will pay attention. Now, having said all of that, I do believe in a glass half full. Maybe it's quarter full, but it's not completely empty. I do believe, and from the energy declaration, you can see that geothermal energy is being explored, and that's a good thing. Nuclear power is being promoted. Fission, which is your regular what you see in nuclear power plants across the country, and fusion that's being developed. But it's still many, many years away because it still is cost prohibitive. So I can't speak for other news outlets, but I know that there is a constant battle going on between propaganda and facts, and the only thing you can do is get out there, show people the facts, spread your stories on as many outlets as possible, social media outlets, LinkedIn, X, Blue Sky. Blue Sky is and Threads and I would say go on Truth Social even if you don't like it and start posting your stuff.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think unfortunately we have more questions than we have time. I think this probably will be the last one, but this person asked if Cypher is on Facebook or Blue Sky.
Cypher, I believe, Cypher is not on Blue Sky, but our articles are posted on Blue Sky. If you follow Amy Harder, who's our executive editor, she's very good about posting on Blue Sky. I am on Blue Sky. I'm not very good about it, but I will be. We are posting on X regularly, which is the name for Twitter. And we're not on Facebook. We are somewhat on Instagram too. So we're
Okay.
definitely on LinkedIn. Do follow us on LinkedIn. And of course, go to our website. You'll get a weekly newsletter. You get a photo of the day and what have you.
Okay, well, I'm sorry we did have some more questions, and we've kind of run out of time, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time, and particularly Amena's. So personally, and on behalf of ECA's leadership, thanks to our members, visitors, and Amena, last but not least, you for making time for us and the food for thought that you've shared with us.
You're welcome. It's
We
my
hope
pleasure.
for all of you, we hope you join us for two things. First, our next national call at this same time on Tuesday, February 25th, when speaking from personal and professional experiences, will engage us in I'm forgetting his name, but will engage us in a conversation about building and maintaining effective relationships with local elected officials. Second, we hope all of you will stay on for a 15-minute action party. ECA members in 2024 took more than 4,500 actions at our national call action parties. We'll turn it over to Liz and Kaylee to tell us how we can take action from our phone, computer, or laptop. And again, Amena, thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining for this last 15-minute section on taking action with Climate Action Now. I am Liz Bridgewater, the Director of Outreach at Climate Action Now. If you're familiar with our climate action parties, that's a big part of my role. I focus on producing those. They're events where people come together for a webinar, but also take action using the Climate Action Now app. Here today as well, we have Kaylee Beam, the Director of Content at Climate Action Now. Kaylee is really our action guru who manages all the actions in the app and on our website, and she's going to walk you through how to take action tonight. So I'll hand it over to you, Kaylee.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having us and for staying on for this extra 15-minute session. I'm going to share what we call our goal tracker. And this is how we can kind of track how many actions we're taking together tonight, but also how you can get on the app and start taking actions yourself. So on the right, you see a QR code. You can go to your phone or tablet, pull up your camera app or wherever you usually go to take photos and hold it up to this QR code. A prompt should appear on your screen that you can click. If you already have the app, that's going to take you right to our campaign for tonight. But if you don't already have the app, it will take you to the App Store to download. And then it's free, of course. And then once it's downloaded, you can sign up and then just scan this QR code again to get to the campaign for tonight. Of course, if it's not working or it's giving you a hard time, we only have 15 minutes, so don't worry too much about it. I'm also going to be dropping some links in the chat that you can use to just take action via web form. So that'll work on computer, phone, tablet, etc. So I'll also be troubleshooting in the chat if you have any questions, but otherwise, yeah, that's how you can get in the app and take action. One thing I will say, we've tried to pick actions that complement the topic of the national call today. So these will really be focused on contacting your federal representatives about some of the really amazing clean tech projects that have been made possible thanks to Inflation Reduction Act funding. And so, yeah, just really urging them to expand and sustain that funding as much as possible. And to Jen's point in the chat earlier, it really is so important that we remind them how many of the IRA's benefits are specifically reaching Republican-led congressional districts. So we do have some actions to that effect too. Others will focus on domestic manufacturing incentives and credits, methane leak and monitoring reduction. We also have some actions on a compressed air energy storage product, expanding solar, etc. So just the right amount of actions for a 15-minute party, and let's see if we can make it to our goal.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kaylee. I'll also mention I had heard Amena talking about the EV tax credits at the end when I had just hopped on. And for folks who are interested on that specific point, tomorrow Climate Action Now is going to be having a Save the EV Tax Credits Climate Action Party. Like I mentioned when I first got on, our action party model is one where you show up and you get to hear from a panel of experts, but you also get to take action using the app on that specific topic. And Kaylee has done a great job of getting together, I think, over 50 actions at this point, all relating to different dimensions and different stakeholders of folks we can reach out to about protecting the EV tax credits. Of course, there's a real challenge with that, and it's an uphill battle, but our mindset with it was we're just going to show up and make as much noise as we can and build community while we do it. So we invite all of you to join us for that event tomorrow night. It's from 7 to 8 p.m. on Zoom, and it will be moderated by the Substack author Robert Hubble, who is the author of the Today's Edition newsletter, if you're familiar with that. So I'll drop a link in the chat in case anyone is interested. Already at 60 actions. That's awesome, you guys. Let's keep going.
Resuming. And thanks for getting that action party. Oh yeah, let me drop the action party link in the chat for everybody if you're interested in registering.
Oh yes, I just realized I sent that link, Kaylee, to the panelists. So let me read it.
No, you're all good.
To everyone. And if you're new to the app, one of the features I wanted to highlight is that there's a personalized message that will be at the top of your messages that you send out to any elected officials or other government targets. This is one of the fun things that we like to highlight in the app because it helps people's inboxes to recognize that these messages are not spam, because there's variation in the text coming through in these messages, even if an inbox is receiving multiple of the same notes. So I encourage you to scroll through and find a personalized option for the beginning of your letters that really will communicate to whoever sees your messages your motivation for why you care about climate action. I don't remember what mine is, but I know Brett's is I'm a father who fears for the future in a warming world. And I think that those are just a really nice element to add. You can choose those in your profile. I'm going to go ahead and scan this and take action at the same time with everyone.
We're almost halfway there, moving right along.
And I just wanted to join in here and just sort of comment on some of the things I heard tonight coming from Amena and then talking about sort of how we take action moving forward. And I just want to remind all of you out there that we'll continuously be monitoring and deciphering all of the information that's coming in from this administration and figuring out how to best take action, how to best bring our power as the elders climate movement to these really important issues like protecting the Inflation Reduction Act, protecting federal agencies. We'll make sure that when federal agencies have to open up public comment periods, that you're going to know that there's public comments available, and that we'll make sure that you have a pathway to submit your comment in an easy way. And Elders Climate Action and Climate Action Now will continue to be building actions and campaigns and ways to target all the decision makers at every level of government as we move forward in the years ahead. So just know that the actions, while we may not have a ton of actions to propose to you today specific to how to respond to all of Trump's administration's recent 8 days or 10 days, whatever it's been, of action, we will be actively responding to all of that in due time. And as sort of the climate movement gets ourselves together and gets our messaging and sort of strategies together, which is all very much in the works as we sit here tonight. And all of these actions, whether they're at a federal level or at a state level, are hugely important in moving the needle forward on climate. So we'll be doing a lot of defensive posturing at a federal level, but we'll also be doing a lot of state level action, local level action, really bringing our voices into where policies and priorities can change in the immediate future.
And I'll add to that, Jen, for anyone who's new to the Climate Action Now app, a lot of our actions are focused on the federal government, but we also have a bunch of actions that are focused on the state level. And we have a new feature that has come in the last few weeks that we're really excited about, where for some cities, not all cities, unfortunately, because some don't have a big enough population for our data center to have this available. But for some cities in the US, we now have the ability for you to send messages to your local leaders as well. And that will be really helpful because I think I've heard a lot of feedback that especially people on city councils, they're really responsive to reading the messages that people will send because they are just not getting contacted as much as federal staffers are. So you can make a really big impact in a lot of cases by reaching out to your local and state officials who may not be getting quite as flooded as your federal officials are on a regular basis with these messages.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and part of what oh, go ahead, Jen, sorry.
No, go ahead, Kaylee.
I was just going to say, part of what we hope to do with these local actions is really share resources too as part of it, not just say, oh, this is something I hope to see more of, but for these staffers who might not have familiarity with some of these issues and topics, link them to resources or helpful toolkits they can use to get started and really take on some of these more innovative climate action and policy ideas at the local level.
Absolutely. And I think, people will see as they are going through these climate action app actions that a lot of these actions also are targeted at places like banks and insurance companies, which are another huge part of this. They sort of the industries that are fueling fossil fuels and helping to support the industry of fossil fuels. Those are huge targets for us also. So you'll find lots of actions within the Climate Action Now app that are targeting those places. And I think, insurance companies, I think, is a very relevant place for us to be thinking about right now as people are being dropped from insurance policies at the same time that their communities are being hit by climate-driven disasters. And so this is a place where, these folks need to be hearing from us that we're concerned and that we're paying attention and that we want to see change. And
to build on that point as well, Jen, in addition to these private sector stakeholders, another option for a lot of the actions in the app is to send messages to folks in the media. That's another big stakeholder group that really benefits from getting feedback from folks about specifically what you're paying attention to, what you care about, what you're upset about, what you want to protect, when you notice disinformation. So that's another really powerful group of people to communicate with through the app, because that, can scale impact very quickly. If you're helping to influence who is disseminating what messages, then you get to influence their entire audience if you're successful when you influence them to create a different story or put new information out in the world.
I was just looking through the chat and saw John's tagline, and he says that I'm a voter, father, and grandfather who believes that climate change is the most important issue facing our nation and the world. That's a very strong opening statement for people to be reading as they open your messages. Nice work, John. Got about 3 minutes left. Should we see how many more actions we can get done in these 3 minutes?
Yes, let's do it.
I can do a couple
Let's do
more.
it.
Let's see, I'll read a few of these actions that you all can expect coming up later in the carousel as motivation to get there before the end of our time. The last action you'll come across is tell Congress to sustain U.S. investment in domestic EV manufacturing. Definitely something that links up with that EV tax credit issue. I know lots of automobile producers have already been starting to make investments in that manufacturing process. So that's going to be a big deal if that gets taken off the table for them.
We also
You'll
have some
see-
nice read and share actions in here with some hopeful articles. I think, it's very easy to forget that there is good things happening, especially globally, and that, progress is really the market force is already shifting towards clean energy. There's a lot of excitement and a lot of investment that has already been put into development. So some of these read and share actions that are in the carousel really focus on, actually, there's been exponential growth in solar, and heat pumps are selling faster than ever. So those are some nice ones to send out.
Yes, definitely, Kaylee. I feel like one of the things that's been giving me a lot of hope is that even though things might feel a little rough in the US right now, there really is a lot of hopeful information and trends in other parts of the world with folks who are still really hammering home on this renewable energy transition. And the renewable energy transition is also still so alive and well in the US, which makes me feel really grateful. Just got 1 minute left, so go ahead and take those final actions, maybe lightning round if you're feeling energetic enough for it.
We made it over halfway. I feel like we should definitely pat ourselves on the back for that.
Yes. All right.
Well,
And with
I always think I always stop and remind myself that's 133 actions in 15 minutes. So that is a great, that's just a great number. And it's so awesome that we have this technology that allows us to do that. If we were all sitting around in a room writing our physical letters and addressing a postcard and mailing it, how much more time, how we wouldn't be able to do the number of actions that we're doing right now in this 15 minutes, right?
yeah,
So you can do a lot in a short
that.
time, which is so great.
awesome. Well, with that, I know we've reached our time mark, so I just want to say thank you everyone for staying on to take action. We really appreciate it, and we always love coming here for these monthly meetings to check in with you guys and take action with you. You guys are awesome, and I really appreciate everything that you do with Climate Action Now.
Well, thank you both for joining us.
Yes, thanks for having us.
So much.
Thank you. We'll see everybody next month on the 4th Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m. Eastern, and we'll do another action party at 8 p.m. Eastern to follow our national call speaker. So have a great rest of your evening, and thank you everybody for all the actions that you're taking.